This is WOWT 6 News, live at 6:30.
We have new reactions from Carrie Dean Moore's execution today. Our Anastasia Champ is live and is saying there are still many against this.
John, the rally wrapped up nearly half an hour ago. The more than 50 people on the steps of the Capitol building called today a sad day in Nebraska history as Carrie Dean Moore became the 38th death row inmate executed by the state, fulfilling his sentence for killing two Omaha cab drivers in the 1970s. It was a day of grieving and sorrow. The protesters stood in solidarity against the death penalty. Many have been protesting all day, some even months and years, against what they call cruel punishment. And though 61% of voters brought the death penalty back, protesters say the lack of support is telling.
I think we should all be scared as hell that a big, strong, rich white man whose dad owns an investment company can bankroll an election, convince 61% of the population to vote on his side, and to give him the power to kill people.
Now, speakers ranging from clergymen to state legislators spoke tonight, all sharing the same sentiment. As far as they're concerned, the fight against the death penalty is far from over. Live in Lincoln with producer Roger Hamer, Anastasia Champ, 6 News.
Thank you, Anastasia. And Carrie Dean Moore is the first person to be executed in 21 years. The family of the cab drivers who witnessed the execution felt they received closure. Brian Master reports.
Inmate number 32947 is dead, killed by lethal injection. After 7 execution date stops and starts since 1980, this one saw no delay. Carrie Dean Moore pronounced dead at 10:47 this morning, 23 minutes after receiving the first of 4 drugs, but not before saying goodbye to family and friends.
He turned his head left and mouthed several words to appears a number of witnesses, including the words, "I love you."
Carrie Dean Moore had been on Nebraska's death row for 38 years for robbing and killing 2 Omaha cab drivers in 1979.
I recognize that today's execution impacts many people on many levels. Most certainly the families of Mr. Van Ness and Mr. Helgeland.
Maynard Helgeland's sons came to the state penitentiary on Tuesday, not to watch Carrie Dean Moore die, but to pay tribute to the victims.
We are here simply to honor our father's memory and Mr. Van Ness's memory and make sure that they don't get left in the dust here.
I hate what he did to the 2 people and the families he affected, but I don't hate the man personally, but I hate for what he done.
As for the execution itself, since Nebraska was using a drug combination never before used in an execution, were there problems?
Didn't appear to be any complications. The curtain was down for a period of time, so we can't say what happened behind the curtain, but from what we saw, it appeared to go as planned.
Nebraska used fentanyl in its execution process. No state has ever done that before in lethal injection. A bigger question is, will Nebraska be able to have another execution with so many of the drugs expiring soon?
As it stands, Nebraska's death row is down to 11 men. In Lincoln with photographer Jim Hinchuk, I'm Brian Master reporting 6 News.
And as Brian mentioned, there are 11 other inmates on Nebraska's death row, and that list includes Roy Ellis, who was convicted of sexually assaulting and killing 12-year-old Amber Harris, and 3 men convicted in the Norfolk botched bank robbery. It left 5 people dead. It's not clear when any of them would be executed. Last week, Nebraska's prisons director Scott Frakes revealed that the state cannot purchase any more of the necessary lethal injection drugs. Frakes says the pharmacy that supplied Nebraska's current batch of drugs is unwilling to sell the state anymore. He says he has contacted at least 40 potential suppliers in 6 states. Much needed rain today, and the question, how much longer will it last? Rusty?
Well, there's just spotty showers here left for the rest of the day. Nothing that's going to be very heavy or very steady. The heaviest rain sliding off towards the east. A couple thunder showers popping up in far southeast Nebraska. And overall, some thunderstorms to the north that are likely to stay out of the viewing area. The heaviest rain sliding east of Shenandoah and Red Oak right now. And a few showers trying to redevelop on the back edge of this, but anything that falls from here on out likely to be very, very light. So temperatures in the 70s now. Mid and upper 70s. We got a little chance to warm up here over the last hour or two, but it looks like 78 goes in the book as our high temperature. 73 by 7 o'clock, still about a 40% chance of a shower, down to a 20% chance by 10. And by tomorrow morning, quite a few clouds, but no rain to worry about. Wednesday actually looks pretty good. It's Thursday when we put another rain chance in the forecast. We'll talk about that and what the rest of the week holds in store coming up a little later.
All right, Rusty. Sarpy County Sheriff's deputies have released new information in a deadly crash. Deputies identified the victim as Kevin Lindgren. He was driving the Chevy Cavalier and pulled out in front of traffic at 84th and Platteview Road. It was late yesterday afternoon, and another driver hit him. Lindgren died. He was 63. He was from Malvern, Iowa. Deputies shut down the intersection for several hours as the South Metro Crash Response Team investigated. And the other drivers involved, Angela Kilton of Louisville and Shannon Lutt from Plattsmouth, were not injured. Police are now offering a $10,000 reward, and this has to do with information about a shooting yesterday. Officers found a man named Antoine Williams. He was at the Mega Saver Northwest Radial in Hamilton. He had an apparent gunshot wound to his mouth. A car was taken in for evidence. Williams received treatment at the hospital. His injuries not believed to be life-threatening. If you have information on this, you're encouraged to contact Crime Stoppers at 444-STOP. British investigators are busy this evening with what they say might be a terrorist attack. And in this case, it was a car driven into pedestrians and cyclists near British Parliament. 3 people were injured, and British counterterrorism police say the driver is 29, a British national, though born overseas, and he is, they say, not cooperating with detectives.
Given that this appears to be a deliberate act, the method, and this being an iconic site, we are treating it as a terrorist incident.
And this man was not on any British terror list. He was alone in the car at the time. They didn't find any guns or explosives in that car. One-time Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort will not take the stand in his bank and tax fraud trial. This morning, lawyers for Manafort rested their case without calling any witnesses. Manafort's on trial in federal court on bank and tax fraud charges, and the prosecution rested its case yesterday. This case being prosecuted by the special counsel investigating Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. The man in Florida accused in the controversial Stand Your Ground shooting death made his first court appearance today. Michael Drake has been charged with manslaughter in the fatal shooting of an unarmed black man. Drake was assaulted by that man in a parking lot. The county sheriff did not arrest Drake at the time. He feels the shooting falls under the Florida Stand Your Ground law. That law grants immunity to anyone who uses deadly force if they can reasonably claim that they were defending themselves. Today, a judge set bond at $100,000. If Drake posts bail, he has to surrender all of his guns to the sheriff and wear an ankle monitor.
And the men of God who were responsible for them not only did nothing, they hid it all.
A shocking new report out of Pennsylvania. Coming up, decades of abuse uncovered by state officials. Plus, more discussions on the proposed juvenile center in downtown Omaha. Coming up, find out what officials are saying. And new updates on a deadly shooting this past Sunday. 6 News Live at 6:30 continues after this. There was more discussion today on the proposed new juvenile justice center. The cost would be $120 million. It would be directly south of the courthouse. 3 alternative plans for the center were discussed today, each claiming to save taxpayer dollars. And John Chapman has more.
Public discussion on the Douglas County Juvenile Justice Center went on for a little more than 4 hours. Douglas County Commissioner James Kavanaugh led the charge, bringing 2 alternative plans to the board. One is to expand the current juvenile facility. The other is to use buildings currently owned by the county. Kavanaugh says each plan would cost taxpayers $50 million, and he wants a vote of the people on the issue.
Vote of the people is essential. We work for you. We're public servants. We don't work for private interests, no matter how good they may be. We work for the voters who put us here. We answer to them, and we should answer to them. Put it on the ballot.
And we need to stand up, and I've heard people talk about putting it to a vote of the people. The fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, this is representative government. And in representative government, there are many times where we as elected officials have to make the tough decisions.
There were statements made for and against the county's plan. Some comments seemed to question the integrity of some board members. Tyler Wilson threatened a recall.
Well, you're all citizens of Douglas County and you represent Douglas County for the people. Well, this isn't for the people. That's kind of ridiculous.
I care about this community and I care about the people in this community. And I care about our youth. Period.
As Commissioner Morgan said, my heart in service is for the people of this county. And we have talked about this for a long time. My public service, I take very seriously. And when someone does say, well, I'm going to take out recall petitions against you, well, yeah, that hurts.
Douglas County plans to build a $120 million project, including a 10-story tower for attorneys, courts, and for juvenile programs and services. Everything in one center. Most likely, there will be more discussion on that plan. With photographer Mike Pluge, John Chapman, 6 News.
County board members have already voted to take one of the building that they need to continue the project by eminent domain, and the Douglas County Board made no decision on the project overall today. Antoine Joy is in jail. He's charged with first-degree murder and several other charges, and this is for the shooting of Andrew Peak at the Buc-ee's 30th and Dodge. It happened early Sunday morning. Peak's car was stolen and found abandoned a few hours later. We'll share Lovejoy's picture as soon as it's available on our 6 News app. Once again, we've reached sports, and we're talking Nebraska football.
You know, all the talk's been about the offense.
Yeah.
We talked about the defense today. The Husker defense was in the spotlight today. Defensive coordinator Eric Chenander talked about Nebraska's first scrimmage of camp. Nebraska's new defensive coordinator, Eric Chenander, got his first look at how the Husker defense shapes up after the Huskers held their first scrimmage of fall training camp.
We were just evaluating technique, effort, communication, and then see who could tackle. For the most part, I think it was pretty good. We definitely got some things to clean up. We definitely have some people in the depth chart shuffle around a little bit, but it was just a good evaluation tool for our coaches on defense.
There are 8 starters back on defense, but Coach Chenander says the depth chart is still being evaluated and a starting lineup may not be decided until next week.
I think we got another scrimmage on Friday, and I think that'll kind of solidify it. After that second scrimmage, when we kind of get the depth chart settled, that's where I'll kind of start making decisions, and our group will start making decisions. So after that one, you'll be able to ask me, and we should be able to kind of tell you how it's going to fall.
Recently, former Husker All-Americans Grant Wistrom and Jason Peter visited with the defense about the black shirts and the strong tradition of wearing the jerseys.
When they were here, the bar was set pretty high already. They knew how to operate, and I think it's not quite like that right now. And I want those guys to get a taste of what that standard is, what the bar is supposed to be, how you're supposed to act when you're a black shirt.
And get ready for the Nebraska football season with our Big Red Extra Special. Join us on Thursday, August 30th at 8 o'clock prime time for a preview of this year's Husker team and a look at the Big Ten Conference. And John, those black shirts, they got to get that tradition back if they want to get back to the top.
Yeah, I like what the coach said. We're trying to find out who can tackle.
That's the first lesson they need to learn. That's a good one.
Trouble in past years. Thanks, Ross.
Today's weather brought to you locally by Iman Plumbing, Heating and Air.
Call Iman anytime for emergency AC repair or a new system. That's trustiman.com.
Trust the big red truck, Iman Plumbing, Heating and Air.
Been kind of a cloudy, damp day, but the rain really hasn't added up to too much. Right along the interstate and points north, you can see there are some storms to the north that likely fade as they drift south. What's left of the steady rain in our viewing area, mainly on the Iowa side of the river. Atlantic to Red Oak to Clarinda with some steady rain. Trying to backtrack a little bit as it rotates around this area of low pressure. There may be a couple spotty showers that pop up. You can see every once in a while there's an isolated one or two, a little shower that drifted just south of Glenwood there over the last hour. But here's how much rain fell across the area. Not a lot. You can see 1500s, Council Bluffs and Bellevue, and then it gradually decreases as you move northwest. That's in the metro anyway. The heaviest rain fell exactly where we thought it would. Southern 3rd, maybe even quarter of the map here, with Beatrice and Falls City really close to 2 inches. You can see these little yellow pockets here. That's radar estimated rainfall 2 to 3 inches in some isolated locations. So 6:37, heading towards 8 o'clock, hour by hour through the forecast. In general, the rain will gradually fade. There may be some showers that are a little stubborn through the overnight hours and hang in western Iowa. We're at the point right now, if these hold on, everybody's saying bring it on. We'll take whatever we can get. So I don't believe they're going to hang on this long, but by 6 a.m., you can see temperatures in the mid-60s, quite a few clouds, and that's how the day starts for Bennington, OPS, and Plattsmouth schools on the first day back to school. Quite a few clouds, temperatures in the 60s, but should be dry as the kids head off to the bus stop. By noon, temperatures warming into the mid-70s. A couple spotty sprinkles may try to develop in western Iowa. Those two probably a little bit over the top. Temperatures tomorrow afternoon do get a chance to climb into the 80s, so it will warm up tomorrow. Likely a little bit warmer than this. I'm thinking up to about 84 to 86 degrees before we start to cool off. We'll keep an eye on some thunder showers to the northwest, but those likely fade as the sun sets, and I don't think they'll make it into the metro. But there's better rain chances heading into Thursday. And another thing to take note is that while it is going to be a little cooler here over the next several days, still going to be rather muggy. You can see the dew point forecast the next 7 days. Still in that muggy category. That's what all these yellows are. But watch as we head into early next week. It looks like we'll get some cooler, even drier air by early next week. And you can see that here over the next 7 days. 86 and 86 Wednesday and Thursday, 85 on Friday. Pretty good rain chance on Thursday after 10 o'clock in the morning, lasting into the afternoon hours. The big question is, how long does that last into the afternoon? We'll narrow those windows down a little bit as we get closer. And then look at by the early part of next week. That rain chance early on in the week cools us off even more. Download our app, follow with the forecast. I'll be sure to keep you posted on the next couple of rain chances, and hopefully we can ring out a little bit more in some of the places that missed out on this round.
Yeah, that would be good on Thursday especially.
Bingo. All
right, Rusty, thanks. An explosive report concerning child sex abuse in the Catholic Church was just released in Pennsylvania. It's described as the largest and most comprehensive investigation on that issue ever in the U.S. The report outlines cover-ups allegedly led by church leaders in dioceses across the state, and it stretched across 7 decades, according to the investigators. Allegedly, it was carried out by more than 300 clergy members described as predator priests.
Priests were raping little boys and girls, and the men of God who were responsible for them not only did nothing, they hid it all.
Well, bishops from 2 dioceses named in the report spoke to the victims and offered apologies. Coming up on 6 News at 6:30, the sons of 2 legends get together for a photo, and it's making us smile.
I kind of just laughed and didn't really believe her at first.
A woman in Texas discovers a very special portrait, and that's coming up next. But first, local stocks.
Closed captioning brought to you by Oriental Rug Palace, your home for fine rugs and furnishings.
The Beatles recorded Come Together nearly half a century ago, and on Monday, 2 of the band members' children came together again. They posted a selfie on Instagram. The picture posted by Sean Ono Lennon shows him next to James McCartney with a caption reading, "Peekaboo." Sean is the son of late John Lennon and artist Yoko Ono, and James' parents are Paul McCartney and the late Linda McCartney. Like their famous fathers, both men are musicians. So what made you smile today? Send us your pictures. Easy way to do it, wwt.com/thismadeusSmile. I will get it there. When a family in Texas, their priceless painting was stolen from their home more than a decade ago, they thought they would never see it again. And then during a chance visit to an uptown Dallas bar this year, Betsy Daniels' daughter thought she was seeing things. She saw it hanging on the wall. After the burglary, the painting ended up at a Dallas antique shop. And earlier this year, the owner of the bar went there looking for artwork and chose the painting. The bar manager says he couldn't believe it when the woman told him it was actually a stolen portrait of her mother.
I kind of just laughed and didn't really believe her at first. We want to kind of keep that story alive and kind of tell people about it.
The painting was returned to Daniels, who is 78 and battling ovarian cancer. And to keep the remarkable story alive, the bar manager plans to print the image onto its drink coasters. Rusty?
story there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. The rain showers move out this evening. We start off with quite a few clouds tomorrow, and then those clouds decrease during the day up to about 86 for the high. Average high is about 85 this time of year, and you can see we're going to be mid-80s right through the rest of the week with rain chance on Thursday. That's the next best chance after 10 a.m. on Thursday, so that's the next one we'll be watching, John.
Facebook, Twitter, WWT.com, NBC Primetime is next, and we'll see you tonight at 10.